The money doesn't grow on trees, they say. But here's the thing, it sort of does. That's because we have a magical money tree with lots of money on it.
Welcome to this week's Wacky Moments of Liberal Expression. CNN's Jeremy Diamond kicked off our week by trying to create a controversy that's just not there. Diamond getting all hot and bothered that President Trump was considering doing his GOP nomination acceptance at Gettysburg.
Reported that President Trump is considering delivering his GOP nomination acceptance speech from the White House, but amid some criticism of that potential venue, the president is now floating another one. This time, he's talking about the hallowed Civil War battlefield in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. But that could be controversial too, particularly because this is a president who has consistently positioned himself as a defender of Confederate symbols and monuments to Confederate generals. Pam?
Or maybe it's just not controversial because that's where the Confederacy lost a major battle that turned the tide in the Union's favor. I also believe a certain Republican president named Abraham Lincoln did an address in Gettysburg. Instead of making a big reach to push a narrative, maybe Diamond needs to reach for a history book. Diamond's Ignorance of History, brought to you by Liberty Mutual. Give them a ring and explain to them the historic disaster of advertising on CNN. At CNN this week, everything was a reach to push a narrative. Once again, those imaginary racist dog whistles, they're being heard everywhere. In fact, it is now racist to say the name Cory Booker.
But he's talking about Joe Biden, trying to win back suburban voters, and he's decided now to name a certain name. Listen.
Again, Biden wants to reestablish that program, but make it much worse. And they recommended Cory Booker to be in charge. Cory Booker is going to head it up. He's going to be the one that tells you what to do and destroys your housing and your area.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but my first campaign was 1988, and I lived through the Willie Horton ad. Naming a black man seems pretty clear to me what the president's trying to do. There's Senator Cory Booker, Democrat of New Jersey. Am I wrong?
Oh, yeah, it's just racist for Trump to say that Senator Cory Booker would be in charge of Joe Biden's housing policies. I mean, it couldn't maybe be that Trump doesn't want a radical leftist who supports things such as slavery reparations to have that position, but on CNN, that's not worth discussing. Also not worth discussing by the left is any criticism of Democratic VP nominee Kamala Harris. Now, as soon as Joe Biden announced his running mate, the leftist media came out on offense because any criticism of Harris would be
play directly into racist and sexist stereotypes.
They're going to throw the kitchen sink at Kamala Harris. It'll be laced with racism. And sexism. In the way that we have come to see this president.
That's not sexism we're even getting at. That is thinly, barely veiled racism.
Yeah, any criticism of Harris would make you a sexist or racist. But when Harris speaks, the leftist media is so in the tank. I am not even making this up, folks. They say her speech comes from a mountaintop.
It's as though she was saying them from the mountaintop as opposed to, just a high school gymnasium there.
She gave a very powerful speech.
It was a beautiful speech, both of them.
She's incredibly warm and funny and light. She was, I thought, fabulous.
That was such a beautiful thing to see.
There was a relaxed quality to her while delivering, some blistering lines of attack.
You see, if Trump criticizes Harris as being radical left,
They've dubbed her radical left, and probably it's probably a cut and paste job that they would have put in for whomever Joe Biden picked. But you're right, it is clearly much more difficult for them for whatever reason, and there's a lot of frustration that the one thing or the one line that the president has seized on is really transparently seems to be anti-woman.
But when Harris is critical of Trump
and delivering, some blistering lines of attack.
It's medicine right now.
Please call CNN directly about their coverage. Tell them how difficult it is to swallow that type of medicine. But you're going to definitely need some medicine to deal with the deceitful pain that I have next. This comes from MSNBC. This week, Ali Velshi complained that those vile Republicans care too much about the national debt. I mean, how could they care about that? Such an evil thing. Velshi bravely disagrees with the argument that money doesn't grow on trees.
The money doesn't grow on trees, they say. But here's the thing, it sort of does. That's because we have a magical money tree with lots of money on it. We know this because we've seen it. It's planted on Wall Street. The head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, said as much back in March at the start of the pandemic.
Is there any limit to the amount of money the Fed is willing to put into this economy to keep it afloat? Is it a blank check?
Essentially, the answer to your question, though, is no.
Oh, not only is Velshi ignorant, he's also deceitful. Here's Federal Reserve Jerome Powell's actual answer from March.
Is there any limit to the amount of money the Fed is willing to put into this economy to keep it afloat? Is it a blank check?
Savannah, we, in certain circumstances like the present, we do have the ability to essentially use our emergency lending authorities. And the only limit on that will be how much backstop we get from the Treasury Department. We're required to get full security for our loans so that we don't lose money.
That seems a little different than
the amount of money the Fed is willing to put into this economy to keep it afloat. Is it a blank check?
Essentially, the answer to your question, though, is no.
But that's just how dishonest and insane things are at MSNBC. So let's wrap things up with a look at them. Time to put on those tinfoil hats. In an effort to push the false agenda that the Trump administration will use the post office in order to rig the election, Lawrence O'Donnell says the U.S. postmaster is just like Vladimir Putin.
The question tonight and every night for the next 83 nights is which one of these guys is going to do more harm to American democracy in his effort to interfere with our election to help Donald Trump win re-election. These two guys want exactly the same thing. They both want Donald Trump to get 4 more years in the White House. One is the dictator of Russia, and the other is the postmaster general.
Who knew running the snail mail was so powerful? That anti-Trump ad masquerading as programming was brought to you by ADT. Give them a call. Let them know how secure you are about Mr. O'Donnell's sanity. But that wasn't even the most insane moment on MSNBC this week. That came on Friday as Morning Joe's Mika rallied for more government diktats on what you can wear and for law enforcement to crack down on those evil people not wearing masks and charge them with crimes. And from that point, it even got more weird.
So I was going to ask you about law enforcement, whether or not they could charge someone who refuses to wear a mask. You can answer that, but I would like to take it further legally. What recourse do the American people have right now when their life is in the hands of a president who won't do the basic things to save it? At what point is it malpractice? At what point is it something worse? I'm thinking of Tulsa, where the Trump campaign took the social distancing stickers off the chairs and squished people together and made them click on a waiver saying you can't sue if you get the coronavirus and die from coming to this rally. How stupid can you be at this point if you follow this president? I beg you not to be for your life.
Yeah, that's pretty normal. And that's also all the time we have. I'm Eric Shiner for MRC TV. Please head over to MRC-store. Check out the great conservative clothing and gifts. Also visit mrctv.org for more great stories and videos. Please like and share and subscribe to these videos on Facebook and YouTube. And we'll be back with some more absolute leftist insanity next week.